But one thing I noticed is having a microphone like this is I whistle when I say S's. like when I say whistle or mansplain or something like that has that sound to it. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I've been doing that my whole life. I didn't know I did that.
I mean, I never really put too much thought towards it. Now it's the only thing I can hear coming out of your mouth.
Now I'm going to perseverate on it the rest of my life. Then I was like, man, my shoes make a lot of noise. So now I have a towel laying under my feet.
My God, man.
I swear to God, I'm picking up all this extra shit I never heard before. It just never occurred to me. But we're trying to be professional, right? So.
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is when you sit down and you've got a microphone that's really sensitive and you got your earphones on and you can actually hear. It's weird because it amplifies your hearing, you know? So when I have my board and I'm playing with the stuff on it, I can hear like the birds chirping and I can hear like if there's a cat or like a squirrel or something moving around nearby, everything is just sort of like brought up into the forefront. But you know, the good news is the sensitivity level doesn't sort of always translate. So some of that stuff can get tuned down and you kind of cheat. You use stuff called audio beds, which is like, if you've ever listened to a podcast and there's just a little bit of music playing softly underneath it, that's there to cover up any of the background sound or noises that are trying noises. Yeah. So.
No, that sounds good. Let's fucking get it.
All right, let's do this thing. A countdown from 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of Hand to Hand Podcast. I am Big Jim. With me, as always, is my man Mike Stoltz. My man, I don't know why I called you my man. That felt tacked on and just artificial. My man Mike. I know. I tell him every time I see him down at the stock exchange. Mike and I are just comparing monocle sizes.
I know it. I know that I'm your man.
Thank you. And it's just, I mean, sometimes it's just nice to hear somebody else say it. Like, you think that you're someone's, you're their man, but then they never say it out loud. But I will, I'll never be afraid to tell you that either on a podcast or across a crowded parking lot, wherever will embarrass you the most, I think.
Dude, I grew up with like an Irish Catholic mom. You can't fucking embarrass me at all. Like,
try it, lad. Oh, please. Give it your best.
So bulletproof with that sort of thing.
Well, I sort of listened back on our, our pilot episode of the show, and I have a few thoughts which I'd like to get your reactions to live and direct.
Sure.
First off, I liked it a lot. It could have been easily broken into 2 episodes. I think $140 is a bit much to ask your average podcast listener to listen or watch for a full hour 40. But I was glad to see that the numbers were amazing. I put it on this one channel that I have on YouTube that I've been trying to work to get more stuff added onto. And within 16 hours, it was easily the most viewed thing on there. There wasn't much, but like the other stuff had been there for a minute. And within a very short period of time, people were watching it. So I think in the future, moving forward, we'll try and keep it to maybe 45 minutes to an hour tops.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I think that my mom probably watched that first episode like 23 times. So,
well, thank her. I mean, God bless her.
Yeah, she knows.
She's like, I want to see my boy.
In lieu of that episode, I don't know if you had points that if you wanted to get to that we can revisit. Or if you want to get over them now.
Well, yeah, I figure. I mean, you came up with some pretty good talking points that I'm sure we can use to fill the time before us.
Sure. So if you listen to the last one, you know that Jim said that he was a bouncer at an alternative lifestyles club, which flagged me. And I started thinking about you. And when we've known each other for a long ass time, and I was thinking 30 years plus, and because we're old. And we were friends when we were kids.
We're seasoned like a steak. We're experienced.
Sure, you call it whatever you want.
That's the lie I cling to.
Cling away. Die on that hill, my friend. But we kind of lost touch after high school for, like friends do. And then within the last 8 to 10 years or so, kind of, reunited, and it felt so good.
So good.
So good. And I was thinking about some of the jobs that you've had in that span of time, and it's fucking interesting. And I'd like to hear more about them. You started off when I knew you as a kid. You had already been in a major motion picture with Harrison Ford.
Oh, I love how you said it. That sounds amazing. Yes, I was.
Well, when you hear that, when you meet somebody, you're like, wow, this guy was in a fucking movie with Harrison Ford.
That's right.
Like, you can imagine that professionally, it can only go up from there, right?
Doors just blew off hinges.
Yeah,
oh, it was
glass
beautiful.
ceiling. So between that time, and I'm going to say these out of order probably, but you were also a stand-up comedian and still are. Porn clerk.
Yes.
DJ for the radio, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I don't know if you had like a wiki scratch kind of DJ or.
Oh my God, I would gladly just to learn how to do that.
And then again, the bouncer at the Alternative Lifestyles Club. So as a comedian, you've always been a really funny guy. So, but I imagine it takes some balls to stand up there and work 5 minutes out and just subject yourself and be completely vulnerable to people that just want to tear your fucking heart out if you don't make them giggle.
Yeah.
So when did you first decide you were going to do that, and how did you go about it?
The comedy?
Yeah.
Man. Well, the truth of the matter is, the first time I actually heard stand-up comedy was somebody in my family brought home a cassette tape. Let's just blow the dust off this story real quick. It was a cassette tape of, again, a different time, Bill Cosby himself, during his height, his zenith, right? Like, there was pudding commercials on TV. Cosby Show was the show to beat. Like,
height of popularity or height of raping?
A little column A, a little column B. Again, with the advantage of hindsight, clearly a different situation. But at the time, young, impressionable little, Catholic school kid me was just mesmerized by how a single person could captivate a room full of people for, an hour, 2 hours, however long the album was. And just through their words, they didn't have to sing, they didn't have to dance, they didn't have to, well, if they wanted to, they could, but there was carte blanche and a whole world of people eating out of the palm of their hands. And that something clicked in my head. I had already done some plays and some musicals, and I got to be an extra. I got to be an Amish kid in Harrison Ford's Opus. I mean, it's the movie that everybody knows him from, Witness. Everybody that, when you say Harrison Ford's name, the first thing you think of is like, that movie where he played a detective in Philadelphia and he's chasing this one murder case that I guess is kind of interesting for some mysterious reason. And then some Amish kid witnessed. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, right? And then he gets injured, has to live in the farm, becomes part of their community. It's just, cliche, I guess some would say. And so, so I'd done shows before, so I didn't have any fear of performing. But I liked more the idea of being able to write the script myself. I didn't have to worry about fitting into a costume. Like, I got to dress whatever I wanted to, and I could rehearse whenever the hell I wanted to. I didn't have to go to practice after practice with a bunch of other people. So that sort of freedom really appealed to me. And so the first chance I got, I'm like, I want to try and do this, see if I can do this. And I would say third grade, I think there was a talent show that was announced that the school was going to have. And I signed up. And it said talent. And I said stand-up comedy. And I spelled it wrong, more than likely, because horrible handwriting. But so I went home and I told, my mom, I'm just like, there's a talent show and I'm going to be in it. And she's like, that's great. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. And she probably didn't understand me, but she said, yeah, you do that. She was encouraging of that. And so it came time for the audition, and I'm sitting there. I could just clear as day. I'm sitting in the auditorium and I'm waiting for my name to get called. And the prettiest girl in my class is, I think, I probably shouldn't say her name, but she also is an alumni of Catholic High. But she was sitting there. She turns to me. Her initials are DM, if that helps. Anyway.
I think I know.
Yeah, so she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm here to audition for the talent show." And she was there to do like a cheer routine with the cheerleaders. And I'm like, "Well, I'm here to do stand-up comedy." And she's like, aren't you a little scared? I'm like, Psh, "I got this."
Do you think the dick and fart jokes are gonna fly?
Well, I was gonna give it a shot, and I didn't have, I think, much to lose at that point. So what I did was they called my name. I went up on stage, like little Jimmy Willig from Mrs. Dolk's third grade class. Is going to try and do stand-up comedy. And so when the stage was mine, I started. Side one, track one, Bill Cosby himself, word for word, just going like, "Dentists tell you not to pick your teeth with any sharp metal objects." Then I had the timing and the cadence, and I was getting laughs, right? Because I'm using time-tested material here, and I'm sure a couple of the volunteers, the parents, the teachers were like, "What's with this chubby white kid doing nightclub material?" And so I didn't get very far before this evil soul-crushing teacher stopped me, and she's like, "You can't do that." And I said, I can't do what?" And she's like, "You can't do another comedian's material. That's stealing." Now, I'm third grade. What do I know? So I'm just being told no by a teacher. I know, especially Catholic school, there's no recourse. They say no, that's it. So I just went home and I was told I couldn't do it. And so with the hindsight of time, being able to look back and be like, these kids didn't write, "Oh, Ricky, you're so fine," but they can dance to it. These other cats they didn't write, "I believe the children are our future," but they can sing it. But I can't do another comics material as a third grader. Like, I'm going to suddenly drop out of school and just like start touring the Catskills. Like, sorry, I can't come back for fourth grade. I'm booked solid. I just can't do it. Right. So that was my first attempt at it, was a total swing and a miss.
Yeah. So how did you to fall into the immense responsibility of porn clerking?
Well, desperation is the mother of a lot of inventions. And so this was ironically enough, after I had gotten let go from the radio station. I was kind of floating around unemployed for a while. And so my former co-host, this gal, Christine Levine, who was a porn clerk for 12 years before getting her job in radio, where we worked together. So she had a long history of porn clerking, to the point where she paid the money to have the term porn clerk copywritten. So if it's ever you, I swear to God, she showed me the paperwork. I'm like, "Did you pay your rent this month?" She's like, "But look at the paperwork. It says I own it." I'm like, "That's great. Show that to the electric company." And, so anyway,
it's going to start paying off any second now.
Yeah. So I was still trying to find a job and pretty depressed after, not working at the radio station anymore. And so my friend Christine just calls me up out of the clear blue, and she's like, "If you're still looking, go down to Fantasy for Adults Only on 15th and Burnside in downtown Portland, and ask for Damien," I believe was the name of the manager at the time, "and tell him that I sent you, and he'll give you a job." I'm like, "For real?" And she's like, "Yeah, go do it." So I went down there. The pay was horrible. It was like basically minimum wage. And but it was a job, and it was a very, very interesting one. So I go down there and I meet with Damien, big dude, shaved head, gutter punk kind of motif, and just lifestyle in general. And so he meets me, shows me around, kind of gives me the lay of the land. I had worked in retail before in various other capacities, but never this hands-on, pun intended. So we actually had the booths in the back that you would put money in, and you could lock the door, and you could watch a little movie and develop film, whatever the fuck you're into. Mine is not to judge. Mine is just to make change and just pretend like that's not happening back there.
Did you have to were you a mopper?
That was it. We get to the end of the whole tour. No, that was pretty much where I was leading to. We get to the end of the tour, and he's like, "Hey, so the job is yours if you want it. If you have any questions, now's the time." I'm just like, "Yeah, so I guess where's the mops?" And he just kind of chuckled. He's like, "Oh, we have a staff that works with the company, and their job is to come through twice a day, every day. We work 365, baby. I worked Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Eve, Thanksgiving Day. And yes, there are people who wait until the last minute for that. You know, they're actually on their way to whatever, eyes wide shut, fuck fest. And they forgot to get lube. And so what do? You got to show up at, 4:30 a.m. Christmas Eve, and you got to hit some, got to get some good, silicone lube for your festivities. And I'm there for you. I'm always there to help. And so he's like, yeah, we have a crew that comes through twice a day, and their sole job is just to clean up and make sure that the booths in the back are spotless. And they did. Those guys, they did an amazing job. This one dude, Edward, I don't even think he was 18. He was barely old enough to be allowed into the store, let alone to be working there. And that was his first job, was a jizz mopper, full on. So yeah,
really?
Yeah. Like I was like seasoned, bitter, cynical, like age and time had done this work on me. And I was sitting around and looking at my coworkers. Most of them are fresh out of goddamn high school. I'm like, this is not where you want to start your work environment experience, because it's not like this anywhere else on the planet.
It's kind of bullshit that you got to start out in a movie with Harrison Ford and that kid has to clean up cum. I mean, life is not fair.
I'd not thought of it like that, and you're right. You're right. That was not right. That was totally unfair. But I took care of Edward as best I could, because I kind of saw again, I didn't want this to be his baseline for work after this, because there's nothing that's going to really compare. And so I would, every time he'd come through, I'd ask him about how high school was going, and stuff like that. And the one time, I swear to God, he comes to me, not like that. But he asked me, he's like, hey man, my girlfriend and I, we've been fooling around for a while. And I'm just like, I know where this is going. And he's just like, yeah, she's late with her period. And I'm like, I'm super scared, man. I don't know what to do. And real stuff would happen at the porn store too. It wasn't just some silly soap opera every day, because it was most certainly that. But there was also some real shit that would happen. And I remember him coming at me like that and saying that, I'm scared. And I went, I went on my break to the Dollar Tree up the block, and I bought 4 pregnancy tests, because I wanted to be cast a wide net. These aren't exactly the most reliable.
No.
So I came back and I put them in a paper bag, and I gave it to him. And it's just cross your fingers. And if this works out, what are you going to do every single time moving forward? He's like, I'm gonna get a condom. I'm like, you goddamn right you are. You're gonna buy stock in the company. And luckily, she did eventually, get her period or whatever. And so it was a false alarm. But
whatever.
Yeah, but amazing stuff took place while I worked there. We were robbed twice by the same guy in a week's time, exactly about a week's time. And it's the first time, every day I would go to work, I had it wasn't really a prayer, but it was sort of like a wish that I would make. And it would be, please God, can today just be boring? And that's all I wanted, was a boring day working at the porn store, because it was never boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excitement isn't always fun. It's it could be a whole bunch of different things. And when you're selling the stuff that we're selling and renting the stuff that we're renting, again, you get an interesting cross-section of the people in your neighborhood. So, the one time I come in, and as we're heading up Burnside, which is a main street in Portland, we're getting passed by a couple of squad cars. And we're like, oh, something's going on. And because we're on Burnside, a lot of times some stuff would kind of go on in the near neighborhood that would be fun to watch. So as we're pulling up, I realized, oh, they're there for my job. They're there for my work. So I walk in there and I find the supervisor. I'm just like, who died? Like trying to, throw a joke out there. Or like, what I miss? And they're like, yeah, we were just robbed at gunpoint. And I was like, no shit. And so it was the same guy that robbed us also knew that the same girl, like he knew her schedule. So he came back and he robbed her a second time. So she got fucked up twice by this guy. And so he robbed the porn store twice. He also robbed it's a Sherry's, which is kind of like a local version of Denny's. So he robbed a diner and a couple other places. Because obviously these are not like high money places. He's spreading a very dumb wide net.
Yeah, probably not a lot of security at either one of those.
Yeah, but he came up to the counter and like was kind of acting a little cagey, which again, not uncommon.
I was gonna say we had some cagey regulars, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, and you could spot them so easily. But yeah, he comes up to the counter and he's just like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and give me all the money in the register? And it was so shocking and jarring to the woman that was working there that she just complied. She didn't fight because she said, no one's going to die for that fucking, you're not going to die for fake dicks. I mean, I'm sorry. That's a hill that no one should have to die on.
Yeah.
And so she just pops open the register. She starts grabbing all the cash. And this is a testament to just her level of customer service. She looks at the guy and says, would you like a bag for this? It's just like, it's inborn, baby. It's like, it's too deep. So he's just like, nah, that'll be great. And grabs a fistful of money. And this fucking redneck runs for the door and bounces into the door. So like, obviously wasn't expecting things to go as smoothly as they had. Ends up dropping about 150 in cash on the ground and then just ran out the door, and they just didn't catch him for a full week. And then he came back the next week. And again, same woman's working there. And she's like, the guy looks really familiar, obviously, and came over to her. And yeah, he's like, you know what I'm here for? And he hit us again. And so luckily after that, it was maybe a day or so, and then they got caught. It was him and two other people that were trying to do like this really like low level crime spree of hitting all these places. I'm like, this is just one place, high money. That's it. Not a bunch of little shit. Come on.
Seriously, just once and out.
Yeah.
So as you were a DJ too, and you got to, we were talking at the gym once, believe it or not. Yes, we go to the gym. That you had gotten to interview some really fucking cool people. So who were some of those people, and who was the coolest person you think you got to meet?
Face to face, coolest person would be Ziggy Marley, because just not just his legacy and his father's talent and everything else, but his just undeniable vibe of warmth. And just, I don't know what it is. Like the moment he walked in the room, it wasn't like, he came in with a cloud of pot smoke, which I mean, wouldn't have been unexpected, but no, he came in, he was very professional. He was very kind. He answered every question. I guess the host of the show asked him about like, his dad. He said, do you miss him at all? And his answer was so profound that it just like, it just shamed me into silence. And he said that obviously he loved his dad very much, and a lot of other people did too. But his attachment was unique in that obviously he is his son. And he's like, on those moments, anytime that I feel like sad, it's like he's here. I am part of him, so he can never be gone so long as I'm still here. And if I feel like I just want to see him, I just look in the mirror so I can see his eyes reflected back at me. And just, I paraphrase that horribly, but the way he said it and the way, like the sincerity in his voice was just so powerful that I was just like, God damn. And then I had him sign in my steamroller that I brought in because I'm like, I had this awesome, I won a comedy contest and like this was in the prize bag. It was this sweet steamroller that I nicknamed Hero for some dumb reason. And I'm like, could you sign my steamroller? And he's just like, yeah. I'm like, it's called Hero because he didn't ask, because why would he ask? And he's like, oh, the pipe's name is Hero? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm realizing how dumb that sounds as it's coming out of my mouth. But he was nice. He's like, to Hero, stay up, stay high, or something. I don't know, whatever he said. But then he signed his name, and I was like, it was just amazing. He was just a really amazing person. But on the phone would be like the best interview that I had a chance to be a part of. Oh, yeah, it's kind of a tie. Which do you want to hear? Do you want to hear George Carlin or Ozzy?
Yes.
Okay. George Carlin was on only able to do this interview through a phone call, which was fine because as you may remember, he rarely did interviews. Like if he had something that he was supposed to promote, he'd go on Letterman, he'd go on, whatever the big shows were. He didn't need to do terrestrial radio, certainly not in the 2000s. But somehow my co-host Christine had managed to get a hold of his agent and sweet talk him enough to agree to do this interview. And so it was just so surreal to be in a room and be able to directly talk to this person that in my mind, in my whole universe is just like a giant. I saw him not so much as a comic, but more as like a prophet in the sense that he wasn't just trying to get you to laugh. He was trying to get you to think. He was trying to get you to question shit. And like, from that standpoint, it was like, I didn't feel like the one point, like the host realizes like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just sitting there listening. He's like, Jim, did you want to say anything to Mr. Carlin before we say goodbye? And it was like, just total fanboy, Chris Farley gush. Like, I love you, Mr. Carlin. I just wanted to say thank you for, all the humor that you have shared with me, with us, with the world, with the universe, really. It was like it changed my life. And it's just like I blathered on for a while, and then he came back with just this like, you're too kind with your words, just like humble and just sincere, like. He was aware of, I guess, his stature or whatever in the world of entertainment and comedy, but it just didn't interest him. That wasn't ever part of his plan. And it was a simple plan, and it was just he wanted to get out there, he wanted to be funny, and he wanted, again, to get people to think and to question shit. And so, yeah, to be a part of that was just amazing. And then Ozzy was actually also in person, but unfortunately, I, as the producer, was basically just there to run around and be driven crazy trying to triangulate stuff between his road manager and the bus driver when he was supposed to arrive at the station, the front door, like his whole entrance into the station, I had to have like set up and, diagrammed for, the purposes of keeping him safe and keeping, other people from just sort of wandering in. I had to clear stuff with the sales staff and all those higher up in the ups that wanted me to do shit for them while I'm trying to do 12 other things at the same time. But this was Ozzy after the Meet the Osbourne show was off the air, and he had stopped taking or was given different medications. So he wasn't that like shambling, brain dead kind of husk of himself that he was during most of that show. He was actually quite lucid and was able to be at times just like brutally honest about his past and like, the shit he did to Sharon and the kids and to himself, and just the shit that he did when he was in the depths of his alcoholism, his drug dependency and everything else. Didn't shy away from anything and was just a total professional. And it was great to sort of hear him be clear and understood instead of like having to keep your ear really close to try and figure it out. But yeah, he was very crisp and clear. And so while he's doing this interview, like there was a lucky listener that got a chance to do a private interview with him on the tour bus. So I had to triangulate stuff with them and the host. I had to make sure everything was recording properly. And so while everybody else is getting pictures taken, and he took every picture and he signed every autograph, I'm still just getting run rampant and frantic because I want to have some direct interaction with Ozzy, that, because this is one of my heroes too. And so finally I'm done with everything, and he's literally about to leave. Like his bouncer, who was not his bouncer, his bodyguard, who was this like, I don't know, just looked like he was chiseled out of onyx, just this huge man with shoulders that looked like, mountains that had kind of been squished together a little bit. And, but wasn't like a meathead, was like very cordial and very professional, charming the pants off of everybody. He didn't have to raise a hand. Like, you didn't want to make this guy upset because he just seemed so cool and cash. But yeah, he had left to sort of clear a path for Mr. Osborne to get back on the tour bus. And so this was my last chance. And I'm frantically looking around for something for him to sign. And then I realized that I don't even have a pen. And so I'm like, Mr. Osborne, before you leave. And he's like, oh, yeah. What did you need? And I'm like, could I get a hug? You know, and I threw it out just like that. Just sort of like, huh? And I will remember this on my deathbed, like hopefully surrounded by loved ones, you know, and in as little pain and discomfort as possible. This memory will float through my head and it'll make me smile. The moment where Mr. Osborne, metal god, looked kind of around me to see if there was any hope that his bodyguard would be able to intervene. And I could tell because the door had just closed shut at the other end of the hallway. So there was really no one there except for Mr. Osborne and Big Jim. And he uncomfortably agreed and gave me a hug. I will tell you this, Mike, as I'm a heterosexual man, I don't give a damn what anybody thinks, but Mr. Osborne, I can't tell you, he smelled like success, like he smelled like a legacy. He smelled like just greatness incarnate and whatever. So I gave him a hug and he was, I could tell, uncomfortable by this moment. And so I didn't keep it live. I didn't give too many back rubs or taps or whatever. Like I kept it, you know, contained.
No pushing your pelvis into him or anything.
Oh, it was just, I had to fight the urge. I didn't feel worthy. Right. I could tell, even if I was going to try, like this was going to be my moment to try and see if I could maybe be gay. This is not my league. I know my league. My league are like Kevin Smith impersonators. That's who I got a chance of going home with at the end of the night. Not rock metal legend Ozzy Osbourne. So again, the hug ends and he quickly makes his way to safety back aboard the safety and comfort of his tour bus. And I walked away. I started to be a little disappointed because I didn't have like a permanent, like tangible thing to be like, Ozzy, sign this for me. But I get the satisfaction of knowing that I made the Prince of Darkness uncomfortable. And that, I think, is worth more than most things that you see on eBay, I'm thinking.
Yeah, you can't quantify that.
Yeah. But yeah, I would gotta say, as coming from being a comedian and trying to do radio, it was the single most terrifying thing that I tried to undertake because to sort of tell this story, I got to give a little bit of background. My friend Christine Levine, who was also established Portland comedian for many years, took me under her wing when I first started doing stand-up in Portland. And so she helped show me the ropes and took me on the road a couple of times to really kind of help me grow as a comic. I really appreciated that help. And so when she was able to open for her friend Doug Stanhope at this big club downtown Portland, this guy Marconi was in the audience and he saw Christine perform and he just fell in love with her, right? Imagine like a blonde Roseanne Barr and just like slaying it, just hilarious. Talks about her kids, talks about her body after the pregnancies and everything else and stuff, and how she's like, one of her jokes is like, everyone likes to refer to the vagina as like a little man in a boat, and she's like, my vagina is more like the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Like it's so much a boat, like it's not like the Titanic where they sing a pretty song about it. It's like Gordon Lightfoot rings a bell 27 times for all the men lost or whatever. So that's like her level of just hilarious.
Yeah, so great.
Oh yeah, she's a peach. And so the Marconi falls in love with her, and he just offers her the job of his producer on the spot. He's like, I want you to help me do my radio show that I'm going to start back up here. And Christina is just so honored and so shocked that she just agrees on the spot. And she has no idea what it entails to try and run a 4 or 5 hour radio show Monday through Friday, every week, every month of every year. And quickly is overwhelmed and is kind of realizing just how of a hole she's in. And so she put it out to the comics, the Portland comics. This is before Facebook, before MySpace. I think it was before LiveJournal. It was a Yahoo message board that the Portland comics would use to communicate. And she just put a post up, said, I need help, send ideas, whatever you can think of. And so I try to make it a goal every night to send her at least 10 ideas. A lot of them were just garbage filler. 10 was the number I wanted to hit. And so I'd throw stuff out there. And even if it was a crap idea, if there was some kernel of something, even in mocking it, that might create a segment, then, my job would be done. And I was just volunteering this, not because I was trying to get on her signal or get and try and jump on her success. I was trying to help her because she had been there for me for all those years, me starting out. And eventually the host took notice, and he was just like, yeah, let's bring Jim on and give him a segment to do. And eventually my position there became a little bit more permanent. And then a couple of months down the road of just sort of volunteering my time and talents, I got to sign this contract with CBS Radio, and I was like super excited. But not that long after, Christine's life kind of detonated a bit, and she just had to step away. And so suddenly I'm being brought on and just doing like funny little bits and sketches and stuff that somebody else is recording and editing. So now I have to run everything. I got to get guests. I got to do background info on that guest. I got to figure out which break. Every day I had to create called a one sheet or a dashboard, breaking down every break, color-coded specific breaks, so that they knew that blue was like this ad, and that pink was like when we would talk, and like if I messed up one, I would hear about it. Like it was intense. And so I'm learning and trying to juggle all these things while learning how to run this software and these computers that I'd never begun to think about how to do before. And so I remember when I got told that Christine was leaving and that I was going to be it, that on the bus ride home to my girlfriend at the time, I had like a breakdown on the bus because I'm like, this is too big. I can't handle this. I'm going to fold quickly under this kind of pressure. But it was thankfully the guys the producers that saw me as overwhelmed as I was, and were very helpful in explaining stuff and helped me produce stuff. And so I could kind of get the hang of it myself and help me kind of fix some problems that I had created. So yeah, overall it was exciting and fun, and I got to meet some amazing people, but yeah, I'm so stressed and terrified because I gotta, the monster's never full. I gotta take care of tomorrow's show, next week's show, next month's show. And it's like, I can see how that burns people out real easy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think just any comedian, especially now, with COVID and the way things are, people are struggling, I think, to find a niche. And you see people doing like the drive-in shows, which I thought was a great fucking idea.
Oh yeah.
Podcasts, if you already had them entrenched, I think it's great. If you're trying to jump on now, like us fucking idiots, I think it's going to be more of an uphill climb.
But they don't know until they see us, Mike.
That's right.
They don't
right.
fucking
when they
know.
get us, they're going to be like, oh shit, I got to get me some of that.
Yeah, you got doors on your house? You shouldn't, because we're about to blow them off. Okay.
Well, exactly. And even in addition to that, there's a cancel culture right now.
Oh, totally.
That I think that if anybody is immune to it, and I think and a lot of people in Hollywood, actresses, actors, and things kind of can get away with a lot, but comedians, I feel like almost have, they're almost immune to it. Like,
I would say that is, if anything, we are kind of more susceptible.
Do you think?
Because I mean, a lot of our job is pushing envelopes and addressing things from abstractist points of view that are absurd. That's the whole point that they're entertaining, is that it's the absurdity of the suggestion that, men be different than women, or, white guys dance like this, or whatever. Right. That's 90% of my material. But when things have shifted to such a hypersensitive environment, that people are now being bored enough to go back and find shit that you said on a tweet from 2002. Now, granted, am I saying that shit should just be kind of whitewashed? No, not at all. But am I saying that this person should be canceled and hung for something that a version of them 8 years ago said, completely negating any potential growth or whatever, even acknowledgement of that. They're not looking for that. They're looking for any reason to hang anyone they can for anything that might be construed as offensive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're a, you know, to use the vernacular now, you're a pretty woke person.
I'm trying to be,
yeah, and I think you do a good job with it. But I mean, I think society looks at comedians under that kind of allowance that you're going to say some shit that's just funny. And, you know, if you look at like movies or comedy TV shows like All in the Family, or movies like Blazing Saddles or something like that, shit would never get a chance to be out today. So, I mean, but it's something when you look back and you watch it, it was like, man, it was nice to look at that time and be like, you know, it wasn't great when you just laugh at each other and love each other. And maybe I'm sounding entitled, but, you know, I don't, people evolve. And I said some shit 30 years ago that I wouldn't say now. Hell, when I look at like social media posts, you know, like, here's your memories, they're kind of cringeworthy from like 5 years ago. And it's not anything that, it's just, I'm a different person. It's not that I said anything inflammatory. Well, I probably did, but it's just people change and they evolve. And as you get older, you change your views. And I don't think that people should be held to, I was kind of hoping that you would argue with me more on this. Seems like we're on the same page. It seems like, I don't think people should be held to something that they said years ago, or even some of the, like, it's one thing if you say something completely inflammatory or completely out of line. But if you say something like, you know, just like, I support Trump or something like that, and then you're like, oh shit, well then you're a racist. I mean, like, I know people that are voted for Trump that weren't racist and it wasn't their thing. You know, maybe they're registered Republicans, they've been forever. But I you know, you're almost getting to where it's getting out of hand. And it's like, at what point do you think the pendulum swings so far to that side that we're now being, in trying to be woke, you're just being oppressive?
Oh, well, first of all, I love that you used pendulum because it's shaped like a penis. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah. Well, and they swing.
Yeah, they swing because they're so powerful, right, Mike? You know, and it's that level of absurdity that someone out there hearing that would be like, oh, well, that was offensive, that I should be held accountable for that. I'm making fun of that absurdity of taking things to that level of hyper, you know, just ridiculous, getting offended for a different culture, you know, and trying to appropriate someone else's outrage. Like, that became popular somehow. Right. But if you look at interviews like Jerry Seinfeld talking about why he would never do colleges ever again, that was like pre-cancel culture, like in its almost embryonic form, in that you would go to try and perform and do, like, colleges used to be like easy money.
Yeah.
Drunk college kids that, you know, are already in debt up to their ears, scrounging together like $5 to come see you, and they're already shit hammered or whatever when they show up. So this is just like, it's like a bar, but, you know, but it's on a university campus. So like, that used to be easy money. But then over time, the political correctness movement evolved into, you know, this hypersensitive environment, like I said. And so now it's to the point where comedy even has been compartmentalized. When I started doing comedy in Portland, there was maybe 40 to 50 of us, give or take. And it was very much a community. We tried to write together. We tried to support one another. It wasn't about me screwing you over to get my stock to go up a little bit. It was, we all want us to do better because we bring more attention to the group, to the area, to biker gangs that might be in town. You never know who might be listening. So it was very much about that. And there were some comics that were stuck in what I'll call the shock jock moment, where when you first start doing comedy, you think that the only way to be edgy or get noticed is to just get as disgusting and as visceral and as shocking as you can, because that's going to leave an impression. And that's a rookie mistake. That's something that some comics see other comics having a niche or an ability for, but only seeing that and not seeing any of the subtlety or the layers to what's actually being said. They're just seeing, this guy said some lewd shit and got a lot of heat for it. I want to get heat too. I'll do similar shit to try and get the
Andrew Dice Clay effect.
Essentially, yeah. And it's like, well, you're trying to be Dice. Dice can do Dice.
Right.
You're like a douchebag that's trying to sound like somebody else. So what I found out, though, after I left was that now, because of this hypersensitive environment, the number of venues has grown exponentially. There was only maybe you got 4 open mics per week if you went to all the different ones throughout town. Now there's like 3 to 4 a night, every night of the week. You can go up as many times as you want, get as much stage time and experience. But now certain venues, they're considered safe zones. So you can't talk about X, Y, and Z. You can't talk about, even if what you're saying is being delivered in a respectful way that is intending to be non-triggering and instead trying to be more informative and or stress alleviating by interjecting humor, because it does have that effect. But instead it's just being shut down at the door as you're talking about this, and that makes someone else triggered, regardless of what may have been said. So there's this preemptiveness, and then like there was these warring factions, and then comics were getting canceled because of stuff that they did on the road years ago. And so I know a guy that was a Portland legend that now can't get booked anywhere in town because anywhere he goes, the story about something that he did with another comic from years ago surfaced. And it went along with the narrative during the Me Too movement. And I'm not trying to take anything away from women that have been objectified, because I know that they have. Sure. And I'm not trying to say that men don't abuse their power and position, because I know that they do. I'm just simply saying that the environment has shifted so dramatically that now it's like, if you go to a specific bar, you can't even, your speech is being, compartmentalized. And yeah, if you try and talk about it, you're going to get a ration of shit and get just dumped and or canceled for it. So it's just crazy now.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten to a point where, where are we going to be in, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, even the way things have gotten exponentially more sensitive and more tense in this country. Yeah. To where, you worry for your kids and stuff like that. Because, you have a beautiful little girl and I have 2 young boys that it's rough trying to raise them, especially with the news that's on today and everything like that. Yeah. Like, shit, you got to keep them away from TVs. I'm to the point where I'm like, yeah, go play video games and shoot people in them. Like, just stay away from the fucking news. Yeah. Like it's getting to be kind of a scary proposition, I think, out there. And at some point, I hope that we realize that, you don't have any control over what somebody else would say, yeah. But you can control like how you react to that. Yeah. And, ultimately the person who hears the words is the one that gives them power. Yeah. You can say things with certainty and things like that, but it depends on who's listening and how they react to what was said. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. There's certainly things that, you can say to start fights and shit like that. It's not like, oh, you should just fucking let it roll off your shoulders. That's not my point. But we're getting like really to the point where you can't say anything. Yeah.
And it's like, I want to be clear about my position regarding, what comics, talk about. I'm not going to say should or shouldn't, because as Mr. Carlin said, anything can be funny. And I do honestly believe that to be true, but there are a lot of addendums that go along with that. That doesn't just mean you can talk about whatever you want, however you want, and be expected to be like, well, it was just a joke or whatever. It's like, no, man, if you're going to start making jokes about material that is triggering, like sexual assault, shit like that, and you're going to toss it off casually because you think that gives you like an air of, whatever the fuck, it doesn't. You're an asshole. And anyone in the room, anyone within the sound of your voice that's hearing you take that stance is exactly right back in that moment for them. And that is triggering, and it is fucking wrong. It's disgusting, and it's abusing the moment of that's supposed to be there for humor, and instead it's grandstanding on a trauma so that you can get attention, and that's disgusting. And I would never be okay with that. I've said some shit on stage where, you know, and I'm not going to say it was during my drinking phase, but it was my choice to try and go that level of shocking, because you get ironically enough, you get inebriated by the power. You get drunk on the attention. You have a room full of people. You have a room like, I don't know how many, like the biggest crowd I may have ever like tried to do like legit material in front of. You know, when you have them laughing and they're coming with you and you can just play with this landscape any way you want, it's a crazy thing. It's better than any drug or any alcohol that has ever been created. And that's why a lot of us kind of chase that sort of sensation afterwards, because it's better than sex, because it's like sex with a couple of thousand people all at the same time, and you're the best at it, baby. So, I mean, you can see how that can be alluring, and then you just sort of like, you're just, again, you feel all powerful. And what does unchecked power do? Or what's the saying?
It corrupts.
Unchecked power corrupts. Absolutely. That was horrible. Catholic education clearly does not work. So, but yeah, I know for a fact that on shows, on podcasts, on other stuff that I've listened back to, and it brings me shame. It truly and honestly does, because I didn't see any problem with my casual approach to this stuff. And mine would just be ridiculously ludicrous, joking about anything that would tap dance into my head. And I've got a crazy imagination. And so stuff would get generated and tossed out. And when it was not thrown back at me, but like parroted back to me by other people, and I saw how funny they were finding it, that's when I got even more kind of disgusted with myself, because it's like, this wasn't just something that I said that was just kind of like, whatever, like kind of tossed out with like some of the other material as it's coming at you. This stuck, and this is going to be something that is going to generate other shit in somebody else's head. And I'm responsible for that because I said that. And, you know, I can't take down I can take out the stuff that I have control over, but, you know, the things that I've said, I mean, even if I take it down, I still said it. I still was okay with it at that point in time. I'm not now. Just to give a quick example, then we got to get out of here because we're about at that time. But you remember when we were in high school, I don't know if did you partake in any of the LCW, our sad attempt at a backyard wrestling federation?
No.
Are you okay?
No,
you were busy. Oh, what were you doing? Oh, getting laid and hanging out with girls. And it's, because it was me and a bunch of dudes.
I wasn't, honey. I never got laid in high school.
Yeah. Okay. I also, nope. Certainly, nope. Not in my presence. Not once. And I was looking. That sounded weird. But no, we did this backyard wrestling thing, and this was like 92, 93. And I was watching this for nostalgia's sake, right? And this isn't anything that you can pull up on YouTube. This was something that was shot on VHS recording equipment, and was just for us and our friends and whatnot. And I got to rewatch this stuff, and I was feeling good, and I was feeling nostalgic. And then I started hearing some of the dumb jokes and just really just lowbrow stuff that I thought was hilarious back then, or just to joke about. And just a lot of it was like against Hispanics, because our friend Carlos was there. And so like just making a lot of dumb jokes about like luchadors and stuff like that. And this is years later, and like clearly no grudges held. I went and I made a personal message to Los, and I was like, not that it matters or anything at all, but I'm aware of it, and I was not okay with the dumb shit. So even though this is water so far under the bridge, it's like out to sea, and it's like it's not even like, you know, around anymore. Seeing that was not okay with me, and so I offered what, you know, apology I could. Now that might seem ridiculous, or that might seem, you know, unnecessary, but I felt it was necessary because it was my words that said it. And so if anybody else takes that a certain way, outside of my sphere of control, can't do anything about that. But I'm working on trying to make sure that I don't continue that way of thinking, and so that doesn't spill off onto our kids. Because like you said, it's getting scary out there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's tough to raise them. And I'm sure Los didn't give a shit that you had done that 30 years ago.
No,
because one high school kid, he knows all too well that most high school boys are fucking idiots. And I sure as hell was. And I'm sure we all were. So
yeah. I mean, if you think back, I get shudders every time. If they had the internet or cell phones when we were in high school,
I say it constantly.
Yeah, I thank the Lord that A, they didn't have cell phones when I was in high school, and B, my daughter will grow up in a post Girls Gone Wild environment. I was like, dear God, if I ever have a daughter, she's going to end up on one of those. And thankfully, they're gone now. So again, it's a blessing.
The woke movement did something right there.
Thank God for that. Well, I think that's where we'll bring it to a close. That feel pretty good to you?
Yeah, it sounds good, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in, checking us out. We'll be back with even more Hand to Hand podcast next time. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
Hey, quick thing. Next time we'll actually talk about something hand to hand. Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis are fighting this Friday. I think it's the 20th. It's free, so check that out. Derek Lewis is a bad motherfucker.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not all just warm feelings and
no. We like to talk about fighting and shit too.
Fuck real, we are. We're bros, bro.
Absolutely.
That took a weird place. All right, we'll just get out of here before it gets any weirder. We'll see you next time.
You son of a bitch.